Hello there and welcome to this one-of-a-kind video where I'm going to look at 1-star reviews for FF14 Endwalker. An overall good expansion with mostly positive reviews, but what fun is there in looking at the positive reviews when there are a few negatives to look at? And my creative brain juices are lacking, so I'm just going to make content this way for now. Think of this as a bonus video though. So we're going to go over to Google here because Google is a very trusted source of information. And we're going to just look for Endwalker reviews on Google. We'll look at the 1-star reviews, so we're going to filter it by 1 star, and we're just going to get right into this. I don't know if people have been playing the same game I have. Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker is a waste of money. The game's congestion alone made it a huge issue. They should have been more prepared for that, and they weren't. Instead of fixing the problems, their idea was giving away more game time. It doesn't solve problems. If you can't play the game, the story was so boring half the time, I was just falling asleep and no originality whatsoever. Maybe Yoshi P just needs to hang it up and realize he's bad at his job. Overall, just a terrible experience. A real letdown coming off Shadowbringers. Honestly, I wouldn't even give this expansion 1 star, but this thing makes you do it, so ignore the 1-star rating. Okay, so this person's basically giving 14 a 0-star review, which is interesting. So the whole congestion thing is Endwalker actually kind of exploded in popularity for a few reasons, and they didn't expect it. They had to actually stop the sale of the game for a period of time just so people would stop buying the game and congesting the servers. Could have they handled this better? Maybe if they were more prepared, sure, but I don't think any game developer could have prepared for the amount of popularity Endwalker received. And then, of course, the story, the pacing of Endwalker, I would say is somewhat of an issue, but if you overall just are enjoying the story, it's not too much of an issue, and I think overall the story is pretty good and original and very unexpected. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but when it came to the actual Endwalker story, it was surprising to say the least, and definitely exceeded my expectations in what I just expected from it. As for Yoshi P resigning and hanging up from making 14, I think that's a pretty bad take. I think he's done a really good job here, so there's that. Anyway, if we do get more into that from other reviews, I'll go a bit more into it, but that's kind of my take here. This is a pretty bad review. This person probably just sounds burnt out from the game and is just done with it. Maybe they think Shadowbringers was better. Shadowbringers did have its pros and cons over Endwalker, this is true. But overall, Endwalker has been a pretty good expansion, so whatever, right? This was also a year ago, so this is like the launch of Endwalker. I don't know if they are comparing the entire Shadowbringers package with the patches compared to the Endwalker initial launch. It's a bit of an unfair comparison. Anyway, let's move on. Well, I purchased the game on Sunday, December 15th. It's now Friday, December 10th, and I haven't been able to play the game even for 1 minute because the queue time on every server is an hour and a half long. What good is a game if you can't play it? Okay, I mean, fair enough, it did suck that the game did become really popular and you couldn't play it when it initially released. Again, this is something that they might have been able to prepare better for, but they didn't. It's a lot better now, by the way. So again, this is another issue with the whole congestion and how popular Endwalker was at release. Okay, and now we have another one. Good luck logging in. The story is pretty mediocre, but on top of that, you have to babysit the queues because of the 2002 errors that will kick you and push you to the back of the queue. I feel like buying the expansion was a complete waste of money, not just because it's a pain to even get into the game, but also the story itself is pretty lame. Okay, this person probably didn't even play the entire story. They just sound like they're frustrated with the queues yet again. So another just being frustrated with the queues. Understandable to a degree. Very good expansion, still plagued with a host of logins and lobby errors. I do not recommend trying to get heavily into this game until this is all fixed. Ongoing for a week now. Okay, yeah, it's been fixed, by the way. After 5+ hours playing this game in title screen, character screen, and in queue, I gave the game a 1-star review for now. How can you even play the game if you can't log in? Again, this is just another issue with the Endwalker launch. There are way better MMOs out there. WoW is in shambles in its current situation, but still more playable than this. Again, this is over a year ago, so I'm just getting more Endwalker shenanigans. Okay, so overall, all these reviews are pretty much complaining about the Endwalker initial launch, which has been fixed since, because the game has either fixed it or the game has lost a bit of popularity since then. So this isn't really an issue anymore, but let's move on to something else. So instead of reviewing Endwalker itself, we can look at more relevant reviews for Final Fantasy XIV as a whole. So if we just go to Final Fantasy XIV here and we look at reviews, and again, we just filter these by 1 star, and we're going to look for ones that weren't 3 years ago. but instead something that was a few months ago. So how can anybody seriously play this game and think it's amazing? I've been recommended this game by multiple people saying how good the plot is, and as far as I understand, they meant late game, combat as well. But before I get to that point, even I have to spend God knows how many hours just wasting my time in the mess that is low level content, pressing at max 4 buttons with barely any interesting or complicated timings and patterns. God awful story which is mostly unvoiced, running from one end of the desert to another. This game is a joke unless you buy it fully, I guess. But even then, you would have to be bored by the monotonous gameplay, uninspired dialogues, and just plain and simple bad graphics. Would give 0 out of 10, but no option like that exists, sadly. Drops the mic. Okay, so this is a 0 out of 5 star review again. So there's some points here that should probably be addressed. As for the early game, yes, it's pretty bad. It is an issue. It does need to be changed. This is a massive issue in my opinion. When you have something like Summoner, which don't get me wrong, is pretty boring at high level, it is created pretty well to accommodate for leveling up. You have most of your kit pretty early on as a summoner, and you only get extra additional things, extra buttons, which don't really completely change the way you play, and it's still kind of fun at low level. Unfortunately, it doesn't get much more fun. This does need to be the case with other jobs, I believe, as it can be extremely boring to play, say, a monk at a really low level because it's just so bare bones. As for the story, again, I do think this is also an issue. The pacing early on in this game is incredibly slow, and it's almost like they do want you to just skip and watch a YouTube video of the story. I do understand this. That said, it does get better by the time you get to Heaven's Ward. As long as you can get through the slog that is A Realm Reborn, it definitely does get better. As for the unvoiced stuff, this is a Japanese game. They don't care too much for their voice acting, but I'm not going to say they don't care at all because they definitely do. It's just more early on when it was A Realm Reborn. They probably didn't expect such a Western popularity, so there's not a lot of voice acting of A Realm Reborn. It makes sense. As for the bad graphics, yes, I kind of agree. The graphics have also been quite outdated, but in 7.0, this is going to be changed as well. Now, I know I haven't really defended the game a lot in this review, but honestly, I don't think what they're pointing out makes it a 0 out of 5 stars. I think they definitely bring up some valid concerns here, but it doesn't really sound like they gave the game a fair chance overall. My review as a new player that just started playing the game. Okay, here we go. Trying my hardest to get into this game since it is known currently to be the best MMORPG, but in my opinion is far from it. The combat is horrible, and anyone that gives the combat a perfect review clearly has not played any other MMO. You literally stand still, cast your moves, wait for the meter to fill before the cast. If you get attacked or accidentally move your character, the move is interrupted and you have to do it again. When dodging an account, you just walk out of the AoE, no running or roll dodging or blocking as far as I know. Some people told me it picks up later on, but yet to see it. When it comes to the story, it's hard to enjoy because you have to walk so long to places that I just skip the cutscenes since I know I'm going to have to walk to another far location. The only good thing is it has auto walk, so you just have to steer your character in the right direction. If they were smart, they would add a run feature. It also sucks if you die on your way to the destination because you go back and have to walk there all over again. Apparently this is a subscription-based game, and you would think they would make your experience as a new player exciting, but instead makes you wonder what people are actually wasting their money on here. I hope the game adds more excitement for new players. Let's dissect this. So the combat is horrible, and they're saying that this is the best MMO. Now, I don't think the combat is horrible, but I do not think it's one of the strongest combat systems when it comes to an MMORPG. The combat isn't the major focus here. The story and all that kind of stuff is a bit more of a focus. And the combat is made good through its encounters, which are incredibly well designed. There is no dodging or dodge rolling or force blocking. This is a tab targeting MMO. I don't think I've ever seen a tab targeting MMO have these kind of features. So yes, it is just move out of AoEs. That's kind of how tab targeting MMOs work. As for their moves being interrupted, that's literally how casts work. If you could move and cast, that would defeat the purpose of having a cast bar in the first place. So I don't really get that point either. As for the enjoying the story because they have to walk so far, there's Aetherites and there's Chocobos, and I don't know what they mean by the run system, maybe an auto run system, but why even play the game if you have a auto destination service? I mean, that does exist through Chocobo Porters, so that is a thing if that's something you want to do, but it is a bit of a pain to do it. It's not as easy as just setting it up from point A to point B. What confuses me the most about this review is they say they're just skipping the cutscenes. So they're saying it's hard to enjoy the story, but they're skipping the cutscenes. So are they really even giving the story a go? Doesn't sound like it. It also sucks if you die on your way to the destination because you have to go back and forth to walk there all over again. I don't get this, like how are you dying in the open world? The open world is very tame on this game. As for the subscription service, you can play the whole of A Realm Reborn up to Heavensward before you even pay a dime for this game, which in my opinion is a pretty good deal considering the story really gets good at Heavensward, and by that time you should probably know if you like the game or not by then. So overall, if you haven't even bought the game yet, and you haven't even played up to Heavensward yet, can you really complain if you haven't spent a dime yet? I don't really think so. I mean, there is criticism here that can be somewhat valid, but overall, this is a pretty bad review. Okay, here's another one. You are forced to play through all that boring, unvoiced and bland cutscenes for almost 300 hours just to unlock things. It doesn't feel like an MMO at all. This game is more like a solo and old FF game, with some online elements. I have played Endwalker and done at least 3 ultimate raids, so I know what I'm talking about. If you are an otaku or FF diehard fan, you will like this game, though. Okay, true, I am those things, so I do like the game. So the first point, that you're forced to go through all the boring and bland cutscenes for almost 300 hours. True, but you don't have to pay for the game for those initial 300 hours. I don't think A Realm Reborn to Heavensward is actually 300 hours, but you aren't forced to pay anything. So if you want to do that all completely free in your own time and take it at your own pace, that is an option there. I get it if it doesn't hook people straight away, and that's okay. If people give it a fair chance, it's whatever, right? But you don't have to pay anything, is my point, until you get to Stormblood. As for it doesn't feel like an MMO at all, it feels more like a solo game and old FF game with online elements. This is true, but I wouldn't really say this is a criticism. I mean, yes, it's an MMORPG, but it has a massive focus on its story elements and its lore and all of that stuff. I'm not saying WoW doesn't for comparison, but FF is very focused on its story. I mean, for me personally, every patch I'm most excited for the story and how the story is going to develop. So I wouldn't really call this a criticism because it has been stated a few times that yes, the game is more of a Final Fantasy game and a JRPG than a MMORPG. There is MMORPG elements here. There's plenty to do with the MMORPG, like raiding and doing all that stuff. And then of course this person does say they've played Endwalker and done at least 3 ultimate raids, so they know what they're talking about. Okay, cool. I've done 5 ultimate raids, so I think I also know what I'm talking about. I think just because you've done ultimate raids doesn't really give you a better opinion than someone who hasn't done ultimate raids. I mean, that's one portion of content this game has to offer over everything else. Again, I'm not defending this game and saying that it has a bunch of content at endgame, because it does actually have a bit of a lack of that kind of stuff. But overall, this review kind of just seems to be all over the place. Okay, I gave FF14 a 1 star because the game is trash. Good start. Shake my head, this is the game I see some Twitch streamers who I follow escape WoW for. The fact of the matter is, FF14 is almost 11 years old, and I didn't see this game get the attention it has gotten the past month before, all because WoW players are upset with the current patch and Blizzard's lawsuit. I say get over it, but no, these streamers talk trash about the game and Blizzard, a game and company responsible for their success on Twitch. I was interested in playing FF14, but I am not any longer. The game is such garbage and not worth my time as I am sticking to WoW. Okay, so a die-hard World of Warcraft fan? Fair enough, I don't think WoW is actually a bad game. As mainly an FF14 player and someone who doesn't really play WoW, I've played WoW before a little bit, and I don't think the game is bad at all. I think there is definitely some good things in World of Warcraft that FF14 could take from WoW. But overall, this person just sounds like they're a bit angry that their favorite streamers are playing FF14 and not World of Warcraft. I mean, you know, if you have dedicated a lot of your time to World of Warcraft and you see your favorite streamers play FF14 and they talk bad about WoW and stuff like that, yeah, it can be a bit annoying. I mean, if I was to quit Final Fantasy XIV and start playing WoW and talking trash about FF14 and Square Enix, I don't think people would be happy with me either, so I kind of get the point here. But overall, this person just seems to be a bit angry at that. Doesn't really have any real criticism to FF14 other than just calling it garbage, which, you know, we can't really work off much. But other than that, yeah, sorry that your favorite streamers are playing FF14. This was also a year ago, so again, this is during the Endwalker launch when the game was super popular. People have gone back to WoW since then. Okay, I think I'm gonna make this my last one because I can see that this video is almost 20 minutes long. This is good fun though, I'm really having fun just looking at these and picking them apart. But this one sparked my interest just before I leave here, so. Feels very outdated, very boring combat and slow GCDs. They said the community is good, but once you say a negative thing, even in the slightest, they will all defend the game like it's a cult and will even write essays about you. I made it to Heavensward, and honestly, it's just the same repetitive thing, just with a better voice cutscene, but it is still boring. It's night and day compared to other FF games, which are a lot better. Overhyped by anime, cosplayers, and FF fans. I'd say Guild Wars 2 and WoW is better. Okay, for that last point, Guild Wars 2 and WoW are different MMORPGs in their own right. Guild Wars 2 is more of a horizontal progression MMORPG with a mix between hybrid and action combat, while WoW is a lot fast-paced combat and has a definitely different gear grind to it at the end game. I do agree that the combat is very slow and the GCDs are very slow. I don't think this is a bad point, but I also don't think it exactly makes the game boring either. Like, once you get high level, it becomes a lot more busy, even with the slow GCD. As for the community being good, overall the community is good. Yes, there are some people who will go after you if you do say a bad thing about the game. I do understand this, and it can be a bit grating. But this is how any fan base works. There will be diehard people in the fan base who will defend the game, even if you give the game the slightest bit of criticism, which, by the way, FF14 does deserve some criticism. Even I stand by that. As for writing essays about you, that's quite a funny take, I'll be honest. And they made it to Heavensward, and honestly, it's just the same repetitive thing with better voice cutscenes, but it's still boring. Again, you haven't paid a dime to get it this far, so that's fine. You didn't enjoy the game, but you didn't pay a dime to even play the game anyway. So, you know, did you really lose anything? Maybe time, if you really didn't enjoy the game. But, you know, this person gave the game a fair chance, I think. As for the last point, overhyped by anime, cosplay, and FF fans, I mean, I guess I'm a fan of all three of those, so not wrong. I think that'll do it for this video, though. I had a lot of fun doing this, looking over these reviews. If you guys enjoyed this, maybe I'll make another one like this. It was funny to me, at least, so I hope you're entertained as well, as much as I have been. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one. Anyway, this is just a bonus video for this week. I'll see you in the next one. So goodbye for now. Thank you to my Patreons again, and make sure to subscribe. Bye-bye.